but it was like I was like, oh no, please. And then because it was like I think the megabytes it has to be 300 and it was like 325. It's like okay, I have a way to convert this, but it's still gonna be like another little bit. So it worked out. But yeah, that was a
Yeah.
episode. So but yeah, we are live. So I will share these links.
Okay, and then I've got to pull up Audacity again. Let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me hit record. Maybe not. Nope, didn't want to do that. Shoot. Hitting wrong tabs on everything. There's that. That's that back up. Audacity, record. All right. Back up Zoom. We live?
We should be. I'm waiting for it to pop up here. I don't know what's going on today. It's being a little slower, but
I blame 2020. I blame the election.
yeah, that's why all the bandwidth is taken from everybody's go vote videos right now. The internet's a wild place. Okay, so I think we're looks like it's chugging along. Looks like it's starting up here.
Okay.
Been live for
almost 100 million early ballots cast. I think the last count from the weekend is over 93, 94 million. That's across crazy. The nation. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, where are you? Link to share. There we go. Okay, we have popped up live now. There we go. Sometimes even the old Mac laptop, which is only 3 years old, needs a little chugging along.
It's all good. All right.
No, I think it's probably because I did that whole I started and stopped it, and I probably it was mad at me. Like I'm not gonna go this fast.
I don't want to talk about Wolverine and Hugh Jackman. That's old news.
We know that's a rumor. Don't try it. Let's see. Okay, I'll share this. My favorite part of the show, if anyone tunes in, they're just like a guy looking at his phone. Just, but people, delete that. Got to let the people know, It's
pretty exciting. Both the writer and artist are listening or have listened to the episode today for World's Finest.
Yeah, that was cool.
Well, Clay was in contact with the writer prior to this, so because he gave some pretty interesting information for the show, and so he was very nice to share it after all the political ads. I'm glad he believes us, and yeah, we know you don't do this because yes, I'm tired of hearing my political ads in my state.
Is that what you got when you get on that? Is you get political ads?
It's done by region, so I get regional ads for North Carolina.
Last night I got, which was kind of fun, on our Borat 2 review on all of them. On Geek First right now we have Borat, and then for Geek Ultimate Alliance I think I'm getting a car commercial right now, which Borat both commercials don't make sense because one, I don't drive, and two, I've already seen Borat 2 and reviewed it, but I guess they really want me to watch it again, so there you go. So everything is ready to go, sir.
Okay, so do you need me to tweet out anything?
No, I tweet out and then I'm going to share that to the Joy right now. Gotcha. So that is all good there.
All right. So let me hit the record button on. Oh, nope. I already did that. So way ahead of that one. All right. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from the Mojoverse to 616 to the Negative Zone to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. My name is the Uncanny Chris.
I am the podcaster Mischief Tresnell.
Alliance Assemble.
I'm back, baby. I'm here. It's been a month. I know I've been here and there, but it's been nice to. Now I'm at the intro. I'm at the full thing. It's nice. How are you doing, sir? How was your Halloween?
It was good, spend it out with the kids trick-or-treating. My son was Captain America, so Marvel, why not? And my daughter was Belle, so all lovely secondhand gifts. My wife's great at finding that kind of stuff and was very excited. So they had a good time. They I was more impressed by how many in the neighborhood were doing trick or treating, but all of it socially distanced. They got full buckets, so they were very happy.
Was anyone doing, we had a few people that took like their what is it that the drain, what is it, the gutter, they took their gutter off and they would be on the porch and they would let the candy slide through the gutter into the bowl. There was a few people
I
doing
heard
that.
about that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was I was like, that's interesting. That also begs the question about what else could you you
Yeah,
know?
we experienced tongs. What else did we got? People just like leaving like bags just outside to go get. So here's the one thing. So yeah, that's good. I had a good Halloween. We went as Toy Story 4 bunch. My fiance was Gabby Gabby. I went as Duke Kaboom, and then my two little girls. The youngest went as Billy Goat and Gruff, the three of them, and then the youngest was Bo Peep. She wanted to be Bo Peep, so that we always do themes. But we were trick or treating, and this has never happened. I'm always like, when is it going to happen? So we left a bowl of candy out for everybody, just to take one. And we get like a good amount of trick-or-treaters, but some years we don't. When we got back, it was all gone. But I do not think this was the amount of many trick-or-treaters. I think somebody just came and took the entire bowl for themselves, and shame on you. That's breaking a Halloween rule. You don't do that. You don't blow the candles until midnight. So that kid out there, you're gonna get karma next year. Like if there's a werewolf or something, like just think about it. So, but no, it was a good. Halloween's my favorite time of year. It was a weird year because, like you said, socially distanced. There was like a parade here, but it all felt like it was happening, but it's still much like everything in COVID, where it feels like, oh, this feels a little off. This feels a little different, of like not as
Yeah.
busy, but yeah, I hope everything gets back to normal next year. But I love Halloween.
I told you offline that my son's a huge fan of Duke Kaboom, so he saw that and just lit up, said Duke Kaboom.
Yeah, I was pretty excited to get that suit. I had ordered it from this place called Oh Yay Costumes. Never heard of them, so I wasn't sure if I was getting screwed out of like $80 or something. But then it showed up and it was all worked. It fine. The only thing was that helmet. That helmet was awful. I didn't wear it most of the time. The helmet fit fine, but that red visor on your nose, it cut. It felt like it didn't actually cut. I'm being exaggerative, but it hurt. It just sitting on the bridge of my nose, it really hurt. So if I ever do it again, I'm gonna probably get some red tape. But yeah, happy Halloween. I hope everyone out there, whether you watch scary movies, whether you ate candy, I ate tons of candy. It's ridiculous how much candy I've eaten, but I hope everyone out there had a good Halloween. And I wanted to thank everybody that has tuned in the past month, just in general, but everyone that stuck with this show, everyone that helped host it, whether it's Brent, whether it's Greg, whether it's Katie. I thank you guys a lot for keeping the ship. Chris could do this alone, but it always is nice to have a co-pilot. And a big shout out to you, Chris, because you kept this running. You're always doing the notes and you're making sure the show's best possible. So thank you, everyone. I did not plan to be gone a month. I'm here for the next 2 weeks. Then after that, my schedule should be kind of getting a bit more regular. But as I've said before, that's what happens when you work in a business that deals with COVID. Nothing's really regular. So that's why it's always like, well, we need this. And if one person coughs, it's like, you're home for 2 weeks. So that's why there's tons of times where it's like, hey, Travis, we need you, but even then they called me Halloween and I said, not a chance. So
nope.
No. So, but I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank you for keeping it going. And
No problem.
there were some great episodes. And even though I did miss the Moon Knight, I was still there last week, and it was a good conversation.
Yes.
So
it would not have been right to at least not have your input on it because as we unfortunately predicted at that point, but you would have been back last week if it weren't for a last minute change. So.
Oh yeah, I know. And I knew that was going to happen. There was something in the air, just like, oh yeah, we're going to get you. So as I'm promoting some links and whatnot, just to get
those
everything going. Yeah, let's get those and then we'll get going on the show. We are part of Geek Ultimate Alliance. That is, I think it's 7 days a week. 10 shows. Some of them are bi-weekly. Monday, we World's Finest True Believers. We were just talking about this off air, but what did you drop this Monday, Chris?
Yeah, we dropped the show Scott. I can't talk today.
It's because we're doing it on a Monday. We're throwing off.
It's not even doing it on a Monday. It's doing it on a Monday afternoon, and it's no. We dropped a great with our newest host. We can't necessarily forget that because we got our new network show at that point. But we've dropped our newest episode with Skyward at that point. So now I got it up.
There you go.
Skyward with our buddy Clay for the host of our newest one of the co-host of Ranger Alliance at that point. So I'd never read it. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to getting through the rest of the volumes to see where the story takes us. So
Yeah, and that's cool. And you guys got some feedback from the creators too. So that's
Yeah,
always a
no,
fun
really
thing. So.
always awesome, and I'm always humbled by even a simple like is well, be nice enough. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a weird week because if you're just listening to a podcast, nothing's changed. If you're watching these videos, we're doing this on a Monday. DC Alliance is going to go tonight as well. But so Tuesdays you have DC Alliance. They're going to be talking. I'm sure there's nothing controversial at all happening in the DC world that they're going to talk about. So they have that going on. Wednesdays is us usually on the podcast feed. You can get us Marvel Alliance, and that's why I'll plug it right in the middle. If you go to Patreon, we're recording this 2 days early because if you don't know, in America, it is the election. So it's just a busy week, hectic week. So Chris had a good idea. Like, let's record this early, get it done. Cause even then it's going to be, it's going to be a hectic week after this. So it was good to get this done. But that's why if you ever want these episodes ad free or early, whether it's us or anything else, you can go there and check that out. Thursday this week, a slice of film. This is one that people have been waiting for as far as from your camp. I believe they recorded it. So I believe this is one coming up. It's the BVS Ultimate Cut. Katie's never seen it. She had Travis and Greg on. So that's going to be interesting because she always has hot takes. So we'll see.
the woman without fear.
The woman without fear, yeah, and somehow it doesn't like Toby. You know what's going on, Katie? But Friday we have Super Civil Servants. They go live on YouTube, and then the audio drops Saturday. Superhero Discussions drops on the podcast feed on Friday. They are, I think, it's going to be season 3 of the Spider-Man animated series, so they're on to that. So check out that if you like Spider-Man. Those are fun episodes. And then the weekends, Jim covers the best of Marvel and DC comics currently happening right now. And then as of right now, so here's 2 scheduled things, and here's 2 things that we've changed around because we announced it initially, but then there was some miscommunication. So Star Wars Alliance will still be, well, it's not bi-weekly right now. It's going to be weekly with Mandalorian, but it's either going to be dropping Sunday or early Monday. So that's the thing because they're doing Mandalorian. So they have that. So Rangers Alliance, which check out the first episode just dropped. Ranger, yeah, see, Ranger, no S just dropped. Check that out. That in the future now is going to be moving to the Thursday. So in the Thursdays, you'll have Slice of Film and then Ranger Alliance. So they'll switch on and off instead of Sunday, which already you got Jim's show and now you have Katie's show. After Mandalorian, things will go back. In the new year, lots of things will change because like World's Finest will be starting to go bi-weekly. Mando will be over. So probably the new year. I know everyone jokes about that graphic we have on Twitter. We're waiting till 2021, and then we're gonna make a full one because we, like I said, it's another meme. We have no plans of adding new shows. We got lots of Patreon stuff. Check out your guys' amalgam chats that on Patreon as well. You and Travis did lots of fun talking about Thunderbolts and Arrow, and Travis just sounded like a kid on Christmas already talking about that. And then me and him have one plan in the future, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that. So like I said, the schedule, that's the new schedule right now. If you have any questions, hit myself up or any of the hosts, they can tell you. But then in 2020, things kind of as things change as the content, like with Mandalorian, we have to make some changes, but Ranger Alliance now Thursday and Star Wars Alliance is Sunday. So I think that is everything. Give us a review on any podcast you like. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm ready to get into some news unless I've missed something.
I think you missed something coming up on Saturday.
I've completely missed
the
biggest...
you missed your own thing. Come on, now we got something on you, man.
I know. I've missed the biggest event of Geekverse. We do this every year. November 7th is the Extra Life charity stream. We have tons of events. I'm going to save the main event for last, because this is the last cast before that. What we do is 24 hours. It starts 9 a.m. PST. The first kind of 12 to 14 hours, a bunch of events. And then after that is lots of shenanigans of just playing games and some of us taking turns to sleep because it's 24 hours. And I don't think we've ever gone one without someone crashing out at some point. But I'm going to get a bunch of Sunny D. I'm getting Miss Vicky chips. I'm going to get movie theater popcorn. I can get it ordered in my place. So I have plans, but we have tons of stuff. We have like myself and Taylor, our fiancés and stuff are doing almost newlywed games. We're battling out to see who's the best power couple in GV. There's an esports kind of league we do where it's us versus each other in games. I'm the current champion right now. I'm defending my title against Jessica. So there's just tons of fun stuff. If you like Call of Duty, Taylor and Kirkland are playing it for a full hour. Chris, you remember Iron Man matches, right? In WWE where guys would get in the ring for a full hour.
I remember, and I remember actually still never being good at COD at that point. If I got like a kill streak of like maybe 4 or 5, it was a good match for me.
It was a success. Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're playing a whole hour. And then the main event from the podcasting side, we have the trivia battle, myself and Geek First going up against Super Civil Servants, you and that whole crew over there. And later on today, I'll finally address, I have a promo dropping because Greg's been dropping promos. So I finally have kept my word back, but I'm going to address them. And then we have the hosts, Scott from DC Film Squadcast, Brent from Fans of Boring Marvel Squadcast, and then Tyler Bucks from Chatter Squadron. There's a lot of squad. I didn't even think about. I didn't even mean to, like, Tyler Bucks. If you don't know these podcasts, he's not affiliated with Squadcast Media at all. He just happens to be in a podcast called Chatter Squadron. So, but these hosts, I can tell you, if you don't follow Twitter, they are just out for blood right now. They're taking this as a sport. They're making. I feel like they're trying to have fun with how many questions can we get wrong. Like, I think they want us to go 0 for 0. So they are, like I said, I talked to Scott privately. He shared some of it on Twitter, but he is like, he sent me the purple devil emoji at one point. I'm pretty worried. I'm not gonna lie. All joking aside, I feel like we're gonna get some real doozies, but it's gonna be tons of fun.
Well, as I told you, I don't know our Star Wars question host at all, but I'm looking forward to doing battle and not answering too many questions, because hopefully that'll be Katie taking that on. Oh yeah, at that point,
because Nathan's always wild card. I think he is showing up, but if he doesn't show up, that round is literally just down to Katie and Taylor, and I feel like the rest of us, we just gotta sit back and try our best. It's I don't know. I want to say we're evenly matched, but now when these guys have these evil smiles talking about these questions, I don't know. Like, is it going to be like, how many steps does Bruce Wayne take in Batman 89?
Hey,
it's like,
as I told you offline, when you shared with me what Scott had said, I said, did you expect any better? They have reputations to hold up. They don't want to be saying we're throwing softball questions. Scott, Brent, and just Tyler have all reputations that they say that they know their genre inside and out, and they're going to prove it. And Brent on Fans today was talking about, now that he knows he can include animated movies at that point, Into the Spider-Verse's game, and therefore I hope Scott heard that some maybe Mask of the Phantasm can be
yes, Brent. I knew it came out the year I was born. He threw it on me like a shot. Like, Travis, it is theatrical. Like, I know, Brent. I know it's one of the best. It's arguably the best Batman movie made of all time. I got to be careful. I don't want to make the hosts mad. I don't want them to go in there with any bias. That was the plan. But no, I think every one of those guys as well who's been sharing, taking the time. I messaged Ray earlier today as far as just like thank them for whether it's on their Twitter feeds or even just their show taking a few moments to promote. That means a lot, because that's something they don't have to do. I just asked them the host, and that was it. I didn't say you guys had to promote anything like that. And all those guys have been great. And I thank you guys, because I met the Squadcast Media through you guys. We all didn't know each other until then. So great guys, and I'm excited. So yeah, tune that in. It's gonna be lots of fun. And as we raise 1,500, you shave me bald. There's stretch goals now. If you raise 1,700, Clay's gonna go bald. If you raise 2,000, Greg and Clay are gonna shave his head, their beards. So
I was about to say, can't shave Greg's head. That'll be not raise money to just give him a nice extra cut.
That's the $20 tier. Yeah, he just like shaves it down completely, just like just whatever little hair is there. But yeah, so there we go. Lots of promotion. But now let's talk some news. Let's talk some Marvel.
Yeah, so we've gotten some questions offline, through the chat, through the DMs at that point. Will we talk about this? Why aren't we talking about this, that, and the other? And we on Marvel,
it's like we're running for office or something.
Exactly. It's almost like, it's not like we're opposed to talking about this story at all. It's just there's a lot to chew on with this, and there's a lot of ifs, maybes, and just not enough for us to feel that, is this a sure thing or is this conjecture and stuff like that. And one or two of the sources that have been putting this out there have, they do have positive reputations on getting things right, but it just wasn't enough that some of the other blogs that we usually kind of go to for, maybe there's some traction. It hasn't really picked this up yet, probably because, unlike that, they maybe have a little bit more on stake than us. And
I think you put it best, because Clay asked us publicly on Twitter, and you said, like, it's not a shot against these scoopers or anything like that. No. But it's just that there's some stories when it's just like, okay, this minor rumor, and here we go. We can, like, a lot of times that Miles Morales rumor, we incorporated because, like you did, because the main story was Spider-Man. So it's like, okay, we've heard some talks, but this is on a lower tier. And then there's some stuff where it is smaller tier, like, oh, this is interesting, could be real, could be not. The Hugh Jackman issue, just in Marvel in general.
There we go. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, the Hugh Jackman Wolverine issue in general, and the recasting of Wolverine, that's a big topic. So that's why we're always like, let's let's see. And there's been some people, and I also feel it's because no one's like, we've heard some people say like there's been an offer put out, he's on a casting grid. I feel like there's been a few people that have put out feelers, but why no one wants to put that out as a full-on scoop, anything like that, is because it's one of those, if you get it wrong, everyone's going to screenshot that and they're going to have receipts for you, right? And it's a big one because that to me is more than Toby, more than Andrew. That is a very delicate road to walk as far as Hugh Jackman, because he was very public in saying he was done. And we're going to talk about a bunch of possibilities of this story, but I think with this, it's so big. That's why I was even a little reluctant to be like, I don't know if I want to cover it because I don't want to be putting it out there. So that's why we're saying it's rumor, but now we're just and it's a lighter news week. We're kind of talking about it's like a what if. This is our Marvel what if episode. Like, what if it were to happen? Because we know with multiverse there's going to be some weird stuff. The second Jamie Foxx's Electro, that conversation is there. So it's kind of based on, we've heard some rumblings, but we have, this is purely, as we're trying to say, just speculation pretty much. There's been some teases, but no one of huge merit is putting this out there as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is, we've seen different blogs and different things saying that, we know that Kevin Feige has known and traveled in many different circles since his time of, being a smaller producer level on the first X-Men movie. He's known Hugh Jackman. They have conversations, things like that. And I believe maybe at one point they've had meetings pretty much as Marvel got basically put into the Disney scope and everything's kind of in the Marvel family at that point. Conversations probably have happened at that point. We know they happened with Patrick Stewart. At that point, we don't know what the idea of that was, but we could always say, hey, are you still interested in doing anything? And he's kind of politely said, probably not. He's moved on, but we had, I think this really started gaining traction when Daniel RPK put out on 10/26 a screenshot. And he's been ramping up a little bit more with this story at that point, but he put out a screenshot supposedly of an offer sheet that went out on 9/10 to Hugh Jackman. It doesn't say for what, it didn't say for what movie. It's just we're making assumptions and based off conjecture and some other rumors that this will be for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which would fit the most at that point, the most appropriate. And could he be more than likely playing Wolverine? Yes. Or they could go completely different direction and recast. I've you and I have talked about this, that supposedly would be an interesting rumor that during some quick multiverse scenes, we might get some actors and actresses that were once rumored to be Marvel characters now getting that chance, like Tom Cruise being Tony Stark, which would be cool.
Well, I even think that there's still a chance that Hugh Jackman could be Tony Stark, because if you look at the trivia and some of the past of Iron Man, Hugh Jackman was one of the people they were considering for that role. Even while he was playing Wolverine, if you look into it, he was one of those. So you could even have that. I wanted to start with, because I think you're at these possibilities. I wanted to ask you, as far as just on face value, are you excited, or would you want him to be? Would you want this to happen, him as Wolverine? And because I don't even know if it would be a cameo or something, but would you, let's say it's a full-on role, not even a cameo, would you want him back as Wolverine?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would love him back at that point. I mean, he is to all of us at that point, because many people of our generation and beyond is like, he is our Wolverine. It's the only one we've gone up to outside of the animated show with The Voice. Yeah. So, and it would be great at that point. I don't, I think this is a cameo. If it is, it doesn't seem, this is supposed to be kind of that's the problem with, you get roles like this that are, his stature is so big, it's already, even on a cameo level, kind of overshadows the movie itself. So I could see this being just a very quick that idea. I've even heard him possibly being an alternate version of Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that was a weird one, because there's another person that has some note. I believe his name is Caleb Williams, and he's somebody that has been more in the Star Wars route, but he's been really spot on with his Disney Plus things. Like for a while, he put out the Bad Batch show, and lots of people were like, "No, that's not going to happen." They're doing it, and then like a few weeks later, it was announced. So he was someone that did say that he had heard things, but he had also heard. And that's why I posed the question: is like he might not be Wolverine. So I think I'd have to, really sit down. But if you ask me, gun to my head, who's the best actor as far as like the best performance in all of Marvel, I still think Hugh Jackman's role in Logan is the best one. As far as you look at acting, there's been many great performances, but just that role alone and his whole career, but that role alone, I think that's the peak of Marvel. The same way I would say like Heath Ledger's the peak of DC, where it's just like I'm still pretty upset that he didn't even get a nomination, Logan, for that. I just think it was such great work. So
bad timing of release when it was in March.
Yeah,
February, March. At that point, it's hard for those films to get any sort of traction for the Academy, even if it's good. It's tough.
yeah, and it was still in that transition of like the year after we got Black Panther, then the year after we got Joaquin. Like Ledger was a one-off at that point. Other than that, like they wouldn't even nominate the whole Dark Knight film. So I think there was still like, I don't know, he's the guy with claws, and it's like I don't think that matters. But I of course would want it, but at the same light, if it's not a cameo, because a cameo, I think that could just be fun and you write off, you go, cool. If it was a role like we're bringing him back as Wolverine in the MCU, there's only kind of two ways I would want it. And I've said, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit on the X-Men cast we did in our like first 5-6 weeks, that I would still be down for Laura to be the main Wolverine and Logan to be Logan. He doesn't have to even be on the team. He can be her mentor. And that's their kind of way of having it two ways of we got someone new and fresh, but then we could have a older Logan. You could easily go off and do more films. I just think that I do think his time is done. And I think that for me, I always wanted this until Endgame. And the reason is because I wanted to see Hugh Jackman with Chris Evans. I wanted to see him with Downey. Like I wanted to see him. And then we still have Hemsworth and we still have Ruffalo. But for me, the main, and I guess you have Holland. So there is that. But those two specifically were like, oh, I want them to get them in the MCU somehow before those two are done, because those two are really, I just think seeing Downey and Jackman like throw barbs at each other on screen, that would be a scene that every comic fan would just be dying to see, like seeing that in a scene. But that's where it's like, there's no character. There's some fun other than I think Holland, because I love that Spider-Man Wolverine dynamic. There's no one that I'm dying to see. And I think if you bring him in, or even if you cameo, people may go, well, he's Wolverine in this universe. I think it is a better shot. Even though I'd love to see it, I do think it's a better shot. He's playing something else in this movie. And whether it's a cameo, whether it's for something fun, whether it's a new role down the line. I've always said I thought something, I know some people don't like it. I always thought it would have been fun if he was going to play the new William Stryker, because I thought it would be a really fun way to do that, like passing the torch, but he plays something completely different than Wolverine. But whether, like you said, whether it's these Doctor Strange, this and that, I think it would be a cameo. And I do, at first I was like, Wolverine. But the more I thought about it, I think it's more likely if this is happening, it would be something. I think it would be something else. And I guess it's strange because we've talked about this with Electro. You and Brent talked about this. It all depends. Not all depends, but a big answer is going to be, who is Evan Peters playing in WandaVision? And we're going to know that in probably 2 months. That to me is going to be a big door. If he is Quicksilver, then that Logan door is kicked wide, wide open. And there's a bigger chance of happening. If he is Brent's favorite character of all time, Mephisto, then it goes, okay, they're just plucking same actors, they're using them. So we'll see. I'm very interested, but I lean towards, if this is happening, it is a new character, or a, like you said, a multiverse character.
Yeah, again, it would love it even if it's the people saying, oh, he's back. I said, I think Hugh Jackman's gotten to a point in his career where he has businesses on the side at that point. I believe his coffee, he's over at that point. He's more free to do, smaller roles, bigger roles, produce, direct at that point. I would love to see him direct. I'd love to see, I always love seeing these actors I really admire at that point get that chance behind it. But I think any sort of commitment outside of a cameo or just a minor role in this without any commitment for further, I think in his caliber, I think it's a lot to do anything. You can't, I love it that Chris Hemsworth said, I'll do this until they tell me I can or I don't want to at that point. But I mean, we see this Chris Evans just like, yeah, I'm done playing the major role at this point. I can come back. And particularly with his regiment that he had to get into in order to get on these parts at that point. We all can't be The Rock. We all can't be, and again, it's not knocking The Rock. That's what he loves to do, and more power to him. It's amazing. I more find it humorous when people try to do his diet regime at that point. But I think that he's gotten to a point in his life and his age. It's just like, I can do this and I can do a little bit of this, but he's even said the torch has to be passed eventually. And I think that's what we've said it before when we did our X-Men show. It's like, I do not envy the person who does step into that role.
Yeah.
But all I ask is just when, how many different people were cast in the Marvel universe, whether it be the Fox or MCU, we're like, oh my God, I can't see that. And the one thing I told people, and I'll go back and I'll do it from DC, is, oh my God, Heath Ledger's going to be the Joker. Knight's Tale, 10 Things I Hate About You. Oh my God, where are they going with this? How about you give him a chance? How about you wait and see at that point and look what happens? I when I heard Robert Downey cast, I said, oh my gosh, I can't wait till we do Demon in Bottle. That is life imitating art on screen of what he's had to go through. It's whatever it is. If it ends up being true, I will welcome it. I'm in the camp of saying it's a cameo or it's a very, very small minor role that has more than a cameo appeal. But if this is our proper, he's in the MCU, just to say he's in the MCU, all for it at that point. Hey, I know, yes, spoiler, Logan, he dies in the end. We can do a different version of Old Man Logan in a different alternative view. We can do,
With Hulk and everything like that.
Yeah, we can do something like that at that point. That way, it's canon and not canon at the same time. It's just, they can have fun with this. That's why I'm looking forward to this movie, is that all the possible Easter eggs. I mean, for crying out loud, when we get to Cosmic Ghost Rider #3, there are a ton of Easter eggs of characters in that. But that's what I'm kind of expecting. If it's true, great. If it ends up, the casting did go out and he said, thinking about it, no. But I really, really think that it's going to be very difficult to keep this under wraps if it is true. But I would love it if we just, until we get the first screening, whenever that happens of it, it would be awesome if they can keep this under wraps as much as possible. But it's hard for me to see that these days.
Well, you brought up some good points, because I was talking about, like, I know they did, I think it was like X-Men Blue and Yellow. It was a few years ago when they had like multiple teams, right? And they did do that thing where somehow Old Man Logan was in the main continuity, and that's how that's where
that was after Secret Wars, and Logan was still dead in the MCU proper.
Yeah, he was dead. Yeah, when he turned into adamantium block or whatever, and but yeah, so that's where it's like you could do something like that. I think you brought up a good point of, does he want to do that? Not even just, I think the regiment is one. And I know some people are like, well, there's been photos of him working out at the gym. It's like, just because the man's just because the man's not Wolverine doesn't mean he's like, that's it, I'm done. Some people are sure, but it's like, I usually talk about, he likes being healthy and stuff. So it's like, even if he's there just to go on the treadmill, it's like, leave the man alone. That could mean anything. So I think it's the regiment, but I also do think it's like, does he look at Logan, and like you've said before, he's kind of said, no, I'm done. He has been very, I think, stern on the passing the torch thing. And I just feel like, would he want to come back and really just even do it from a creative standpoint? Is there anything left for him? And it's one of those things too of, will he, like, because to me, that character, I love Downey's ending in Endgame, but like, I feel that Hugh Jackman's that kind of swan song, it was a 2.5-hour movie dedicated to him and Stewart, but dedicated to him. That scene with Laura is fantastic. It's just, are you ever going to get better than that? Can you ever? And even Feige said the Endgame death scene was an inspiration from that movie and that scene. So it's like, you were the start of maybe this like killing off a character. I always say like The Dark Knight Rises was this generation's for the movie, starting off like giving the hero an ending story. Logan's was like, hey, you can kill the main hero, make it sad, but it's going to be okay. Just make it, just do it well. And I just don't know if there's anything there for him. And that's what I was going to pose you to. If it's like, let's say he's playing a role, but it's not Wolverine, like just say a new Marvel character. I had seen Katie tweet this out, and I completely understand this, because I'm having not a similar crisis, but a same worry as far as Christian Bale being in Thor Love and Thunder. That still throws me off. That still is like, it's hard for me to picture him not as Batman and be another comic book role. That's why I think it's going to be something so out there and different. But I think I know you are, because he's a good actress. I know you, but one, would you want to see him? Let's say he was cast in the MCU as like an ongoing role, but it's nothing like Wolverine, something else. And two, also, you don't fan cast, but just like, where would he fit? Because that's a good thing about him. He is a phenomenal actor, and he does much more than just Logan and Wolverine. And I feel that he could kind of fit anywhere. And I would love it if they did the Bale thing, where he was someone on the villainous side. I would like it, because then you don't get the comparison of, oh, he's a hero with a team. If he was playing somebody, and I don't even know. So I'm throwing you a question and I don't even have an answer, because I just thought of it now. But I think he's a great actor that could pull something off.
Yeah, I think and I've got to really preface this because again, we have people like, Oscar Isaac that can have cross universes at that
Yes.
point. So let me use that as just my example at the top of my head. Oscar Isaac playing Apocalypse, playing the voice of Spider-Man 2099 to Moon Knight. I actually enjoy Apocalypse. I'm not as much of a hater. Yes, I understand there are things wrong with it, but I actually do enjoy what Apocalypse did bring to it at that point. But him jumping into Moon Knight is not as difficult, quote unquote difficult, because it wasn't a mainstay of a character that stuck around.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman's, the big issue with him is that's all we've seen him for years and years and years as Wolverine, as Logan, as James Howlett. So it's hard for me to say, could I see him do different parts? Yes, but I think when you still look at him, you see Wolverine, you see something different. Yeah, and I know I'd propose like he could be something else, but it's more of a wink and a nod saying, hey, I'm kind of in the MCU, but not in the way you think.
Yeah,
So
him being Doctor Strange in a multiverse quickly,
yeah,
that would be a scene, and you may never see him again. You may,
yeah,
or you might, he could voice it in an animated show, but he might be like, oh, that's cool. Some respect to Hugh Jackman.
and so the longer he sticks around into the MCU, and again, it's Hugh Jackman. He's earned enough credit. If he wants to stick around at that point, I guarantee Kevin Feige would love to listen and keep him there because they know the box office, the potential that could bring in. Yes, I know theaters are shut down, but I'm saying the potential at that point of when and ever that happens. But the longer he sticks around, the more difficult it puts Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios in trying to recast this part because it is going to happen. It has to happen. And I want that person, whoever it is, if we don't get, like we keep on saying, oh, we got to cast a Wolverine, we may not get our quote unquote Logan. We may go Laura Kinney at that point and do something different. But I think for the fans at that point, they would go with Logan first because again, that's what the audience expect. That's what to do. Yeah, then bring in Laura Kinney X-23 and do that. But it's hard for me to even answer that question just because I think it does more damage to moving on, and it keeps Hugh Jackman even at his word, which I think he's been, like we said, he's been very adamant that this torch needs to be passed eventually. So
I think, and this is for, because somehow this always works its way into some shows, but I think this is very similar to sports where in football, when you have a quarterback and they've been there for a while, there's always that awkward thing in the last 5 years of when do we say good? When do we put in the new guy? Right? What is it? Because you could put in the new guy and you hope that it builds and successful, or do you keep the older guy for around who's been carrying this franchise and maybe there's one more title there, but you don't know for sure, right? It's the same thing with this. It's like
kind of a Rocky Balboa thing. There's still something left in my basement.
Exactly. So do you go with that with Jackman? Like, well, this is proven commodity of, like you said, let's say real world. I think an MCU Wolverine movie, there's a chance that could have been $1 billion movie. The way they would market everything like that, like, or sorry, an MCU Hugh Jackman led one or something like that, or even Disney Plus, like that'd be tons of subscriptions. But do you put in the new guy? Do you have that same thing? You don't know. But then, like you said, you have to build for the future if you plan on using Wolverine. So it's very interesting, and this is something, again, these are rumors we've heard before, stuff in other realms of comic book and geekness. This could be something that could never even happen. We could watch Doctor Strange Multiverse and no sight of Hugh Jackman at all. I'll ask you this: do you think there's a better chance of him doing a Bradley Cooper route than of doing a voice or something like that? Because I still wonder with Christian Bale. I'm being proven wrong because it seems like he's in Sydney, but I thought, oh, that's what he's going to do. He's going to maybe just do a voice for something. That's easy. That's something fun. Looks like it's not, but it's either that or maybe Hugh Jackman is the perfect MODOK casting that I just never thought about. Maybe.
You've got your MODOK. We've got Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, but they're not going to put it in the movie. They're gonna disprove that. They're like, oh, that's its own thing. So like, imagine that they do
Patton, if you're listening, listen to what Mr. Snell's saying.
Yeah, enjoy that TV show because they're not going to bring you over, But I think Patton's going to be really, really good. But wouldn't that be something? Everyone knows Hugh Jackman's in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. We get closer and closer, and this chair turns around, and he's a floating head. And so many people are, and that's what's fun. I think there's people that would be very excited for him to be back. There's people that would be disappointed. There's people that would be fine with him doing another role, fine with not. So I'm not sure. Maybe they go that route of he's a CG character or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see him doing a silver voice because again, voice work can be that he could, do any sort of things with that idea. So yeah,
he could use his real accent.
Exactly. Yes.
Like that Wolverine is not his voice. He could literally just talk how he is and be like, oh, like some people might not even know that's Hugh Jackman. I guarantee you there is a strong majority of people that still don't know Hugh Jackman in Australian and think he sounds like James Howell. I guarantee you that's the case.
The boy from Oz is literally one of, you can see him in his element at that point, that play. And just hearing the story of how he ended up getting that role again when he turned it down the first time and just couldn't do it when he was cast. I mean, that's a great story.
So anything else? I guess we'll wait until we hear anything more. I think I agree with you that it's gonna be hard to keep secret, but I think this is one I could see the Toby and Andrew one, them eventually coming out saying, hey, they're gonna be in this, just because I think with it Spider-Man 3 or whatnot, that could add to
Remember,
box
that
office.
casting is not confirmed.
Not confirmed, folks, but it's not confirmed either. You know, like that's the thing. So I could see them. I could see one day throwing a cover online of the 3 Spider-Man together, but I could see Hugh Jackman's, even if it leaks, them saying, "No, we're not saying a single word." And plus, you never know. Some cameos don't leak. You know, like there's a certain cameo in Rise of Skywalker that was kept secret. You know, so it still can be pulled off. You know, so there's a chance that obviously now some people know, but I mean like pulled off in the sense of like a big variety deadline coming out and being like, we've talked to Hugh Jackman's friend's mother's agent and yeah, he's in it. Or Tamora Morrison's agent coming up being, he's playing Boba Fett. Like if we don't get anything of that Hugh Jackman, I think they'll try and keep it secret.
We saw Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman working out together at the gym.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
And Ryan Reynolds was in the Deadpool costume and
there is the one when I talked about like, oh, we didn't get some of the Evans Downey, I'm maybe less interested. That is still the one that we got it, I know, in Origins, which was actually still a good scene. I would still very much would love to see, and I'm always still mad he was never in one of those Deadpool movies, Hugh Jackman. I've still pitched it as I want Hugh Jackman to play Hugh Jackman in a Deadpool movie, but they need to get these on screen, even if it's not Marvel. I don't know why Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have not done like a buddy cop movie or something yet. They just have such good chemistry. It has to happen. They're just like, I think people would love it. This fake feud that they have going on, you know, it's just like, I really enjoy it. So, you know, if we could get Wolverine and Hugh Jackman Deadpool together, I'd be ready for that.
That would just be good at just a webisode of it.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, let us know what you think at that point. What do you see this as? Do you see the possibilities of this? What are your hot takes at that point? If it's not Wolverine and just the idea of what he could do in the Multiverse of Madness, if it's true.
And there we go. Did some speculation. There you go.
So let's do some podcast magic and do some an ad break. And by the time this drops, it'll be Wednesday. So for those of you in the States, maybe this might be the first time in months that you have not heard a political ad, but we can't guarantee that.
No, that's so funny. Like Chris said, we have a partnership. We don't pick the ads. We don't pick the volume. So you can choose to turn down a little bit if it's coming up. I think I've kind of figured out that it depends on the podcatcher you use. So that helps grow the show. That helps support it. Like we said, we add Ranger Alliance because of you guys listening and because you guys support us Patreon. We can do that. We can afford to keep this feed running, get everyone paid, stuff like that. And now it's all about building the show and becoming bigger and better. So we're going to throw some ads and then we're going to be back with some news in a second. And we're back. We're back, just like,
look at that.
We're coming out of our portal. We're ready to talk about some more news. So what's next, Chris?
Well, I saw this story and I figured, well, it's his first day back and proper at that point. Let's lead with it that way. Outside of the main news, our topic with Wolverine, Moon Knight, Marvel Studios casting 4 Egyptian characters alongside Oscar Isaac's lead. This was an exclusive from the direct. So what did they talk about?
Well, they're casting 3 Egyptian roles, but the biggest one was they were casting the female lead supposedly of this show as well. So I think this shows that, because I always wondered how much they're going to get to do, because if you don't know, Chris talked about this when we get the rundown, but just to reiterate, he's a mercenary, ends up in Egypt, some things go terribly wrong, and he ends up, anytime you get an Egyptian spirit god in your body, might not be the greatest thing, but
resurrecting them, owing favors to people.
Yeah, exactly. So they're casting these roles. So I guess that is you talked about last week, we got the director coming in that's also of Egyptian descent. So it shows that this is clearly going to be something happening in the show. These are going to be characters. It's not going to be skirted over. So I was trying to pull it up here, and it's just my internet.
You trying to call the descriptions?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
trying
Yep.
to, but my internet was being a little
Yep.
slow. So okay,
I got
thank
it
you.
up. So yeah, so we got four roles. The first role is for the lead female, 20s to 30s, Egyptian, strong, intelligent, and self-sufficient. She's always 2 steps ahead. The last 3 roles are less specific, very general at that point. Character 1, female, all ages, Egyptian, fun, witty, and lovable. Character 2, male, all ages, Egyptian, dignified, and powerful. Last one is open to any gender, male or female, all ages, Egyptian, eccentric with a sharp wit and interesting physicality.
Yeah, that's a different description for what you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know you're more into Moon Knight than I am, but from what I remember reading about Moon Knight, and it's on my review list at that point after I'm restarting Dawn of X. Now that we're finally done with House of X, I just finished up Hawkeye, which is very interesting. I can't wait till we hopefully bring that one day to Comic Book Corner. This is my next thing, starting to dive into Moon Knight, but it doesn't match up with. Like, it's hard for me to even think about any of the characters this could line up with, because we could have one of these as being Khonshu, the Egyptian moon god.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily as overt at that point. But that female lead is really interesting at that point, because I don't think Moon Knight has ever struck as a strong female lead, co-lead in his series.
No, not really. He's had people that are a love interest or a friend or something he's trying to say, but no one of huge note to be like, oh yeah, she's a real second hand or a sidekick or a co-lead. So it could be interesting. It could be like the main lead, but we don't know what the size of the role is. My theory is, and Hines will like this, as far as I think that this could be. I've always wondered how they're going to tell the story. I've wondered lots of things. Obviously, I've talked about of what route they're going to go, and I think there's a good chance we may get a route, whether he's already crime fighting or in an asylum, that you'll get it like Arrow, where you'll get flashbacks to how he got these powers. I don't think they'll go in start to finish order. I think they will maybe jump around a little bit. I think that'll also help with showing him being a little off kilter, and maybe mentally he's scattered, and that could show if like he's going in between the past, the present, and maybe even sometimes the future. He doesn't know exactly where he is. He could be reliving stuff from the past. So that's kind of my working theory now, that we're not going to meet Mark Spector and he's going to go on his adventure. He's going to be mercenary. He's going to get Egypt. I think you'll meet him, and then you'll get the Arrow effect where they'll jump back to the island. I eventually end up hating that once we got to season 4 or 5 of, oh man, can we stop that? But I think for an introduction to this character, it's good, and you can also have some intrigue there. So I think that's the route they're going to go.
Yeah, the direct goes into the possibility of character 2 could match the character Amon-Ra in the comics. As in mythology, Amon-Ra is Khonshu's father and attempts to superimpose his will onto his son every few generations with his new vessel.
Oh man, I love it. This show's gonna be so weird. And that's the thing, like you point out too, there's so many characters in these comic books that just maybe appear for like one little run, and they're just somehow connected to the Khonshu. There's lots of spirits going around. There's lots of just like people with no faces that are wearing Egyptian masks or like skull masks. So it's not like Court of Owls, but it's in that sense of they have a lot of variety as far as weirdness and people, and like this is the head of this thing and this is blah blah blah. And so I think that, like you said, these people could be almost anybody. There might be a few they peg in, and that's a good thing. I think that the showrunners have. There's a lot of creative freedom, I think. And there's not so much said of like with Batman, you have to do these 5 things. With Spider-Man, like look at Uncle Ben. Everyone's still mad. Every Spider-Man movie we get Tom Holland. There's no uncle, and I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes that means too. I'm like, there's no Uncle Ben. Where is he? He's so important.
Well, we have a suit. We have a suitcase.
Oh, we have a suit.
He did
exist. We don't even know. That could be for some other guy. But no, I think that's a good thing with Moon Knight. It's not so set where it's like you have to do these 5 things. They can kind of have an open field.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. So I like it that we're starting to kind of like reverse of Miss Marvel per se, is that we got a lot of upcoming casting, and then we got the cast. I think this one we're hearing, we got Oscar Isaac, we got the director, we're getting these castings. So maybe we'll start hearing when they do cast for this, because we don't know when filming is necessarily supposed to start yet, but like we said, if they're a major role, I'm thinking that this is just leaking and they've got their major role at that point.
Yeah, so. And we still got to wait for Oscar Isaac to deny it too, right? So we got to go through that.
We've got about, what is it, 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 more weeks for that one.
He has to deny it. They have to confirm it. Then they get the other people. You got to have the director retweet that Oscar Isaac's in it, but then no one's confirmed. So yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I like I said, I still loved how Deadline didn't even acknowledge that in their in their casting stuff. So, all right, so our next story is kind of interesting. This came over last week. The Suicide Squad. James Gunn reconnected with Marvel one day after joining the DC movie. So,
I have this pulled up. I can take this
okay.
one. So yeah,
we'll let you do it. Then you got it pulled up.
Yeah, so they were talking to James Gunn about just kind of the past few years, talking about Suicide Squad, and like Chris just said, apparently he was hired back from Marvel the day one after he agreed to do Suicide Squad. So interesting timing there. I wonder if word travels through Hollywood, eh? And then he had talked about Kevin Feige and whatnot, and he said his reaction was, please make a good movie, just make a great movie. While Marvel and DC have always been rivals, the big two of the comic book industry, Gunn hasn't had his latest project kept secret as friends of MCU. That was Empires, not Kevin Feige giving him the phone call. Well, Marvel and DC have always been rivals. No. And then he said Kevin knew all those characters were, or who the characters were, months before we revealed them at Fandom. He still knows who the villain is. I think he's pretty trustworthy with his NDA. So I'd have to think so.
I do like that, because that's kind of like it's that is a Gunn knows what's going on currently in DC and involved with Jeff Johns at that point. So I think it could be true, but I can also see it a slight in the sense of if that rumor of Johns leaking some of what was going on set with Justice League and other things like that, because that's been, Jeff Johns leaked some stuff to Marvel, and that's how Civil War got changed and things like that.
That's what I was gonna say, Chris. How do you feel about Kevin Feige coming in to ruin the Suicide Squad? He's a mole. He's on set. He's probably somehow working in Hugh Jackman. But no, I think it's fun. I think it shows.
It's one of those. It's like, yeah, that's bait. Nope, not taking it.
I think it shows. To me, when I read that Marvel situation, he had much more of a problem, James Gunn and Alan Horn did, and maybe the uppers. And I have a feeling, and we've even heard this before, that Feige was maybe not so much of a fan of the quickness to that decision, because it really messed up his plans. Like, obviously COVID happened, so that changed stuff, but there's a chance we were on track to be getting Guardians sooner, or could have gotten it by now in a normal world, right? It was going into production. It was planned. He had already written the script, but then he got fired. Everything changed. So I think it shows that him and Feige have always kept on a good relationship. He, like we talked about, he's on the set, and lots of those people are friends. We talk about all the time. We don't know anything about their lives, really. We know little snippets, but that's about it. And I think James Gunn is right with his NDA. I don't think Kevin Feige's gonna be saying anything.
But even it's like, it's just like I said. What does Kevin Feige? He doesn't need that kind of. There's no benefit to him of doing that, because he, in his mind, two things. One, that DC doing well helps Marvel do well. I've been a proponent of that. I think he does believe it, because again, they can one up each other and just have a healthy. They've gone back and forth and had a healthy kind of competition at that point. But on the selfish side, it's like, I don't need to chase you. You need to chase us. We're the standard bearers right now when it comes to, if we're looking at who's necessary, quote unquote, on top of, not, I'm not even going to say cinematic universe, I'm just saying movies at this point. Well, yeah, right now Marvel's way ahead at that point in the sense of the movies at that point. That, again, I've gone on record too. I love DC. I mean, you look at my own Twitter feed, it's not anything necessarily Marvel. It's the Gary Frank looking at one of the images he's released post Death Metal at that point. So again, I will equally think, but again, Feige doesn't need that. And it shows the respect each other have, that saying, I trust him enough to talk to him about this and not have to say, oh yeah, this is under wraps, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I don't have anything more to add, because I echo what you said as far as I think both doing well, because I think there's tons of people that still somehow semi know the difference between Marvel and DC, but to me it's just they're seeing a comic book movie, and if it's a good comic book movie, they'll come back for more. If it's a bad comic book movie or one that they dislike, that might make them question, I don't know if I need to see this one. And I think that helps
Mhm.
the whole type of genre. So yeah,
It,
it was a
it,
fun little blurb that they had,
it,
and I'm glad they're still talking and everything.
It is, and it makes sense just because of the nature of not necessarily the firing, but what was involved in his old tweets. And I don't want to get into that discussion right now because
No.
that's it. I'm not at that point because that's not what it is at that
No, I
point.
know.
But it's the idea that, well, duh, they didn't want to like all of a sudden go back on it because it shows they got egg on their face, and it shows that, well, maybe they don't care about what he said and stuff like that. It's like, I don't want to play Monday morning cornerback on that one because
Mhm.
there's too many things, and it's a discussion for another day. But I'll move that off to the side.
Yeah, so I'm excited for Suicide Squad. I'm excited for Guardians 3 whenever we get it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to all that.
Yeah, so another quick hit of a story. Marvel Studios' What If Disney Plus show adds a Lovecraft Country composer Laura Karpman, and so this goes under the category of okay, now we can officially say who the composer is because I think this
Mhm.
series is well done,
Yeah,
very well done.
you've been saying that for a while. Yeah, the only thing I don't have too much to add on this one because I've not watched the show, so I don't know what her
It's
track record is, where her sound is. But
it,
I'm excited that they're moving forward and they got somebody here.
Yeah, it's one of these things like I could just be shooting in the dark, but I mean it's slated for summer 2021, but my theory is that they need something MC because I think that needs to reverse. I think that needs to be around the time of Black Widow at that point, and
Yeah.
I could see an early late winter, early spring release with followed by depending on how many episodes. I can't remember how many episodes they have at this point. I want to say if
I
it's one
feel
per
like it's
movie.
right. Yeah, I guess one per movie. Well, it's one per
It may
movie,
it
but
may
we're
just be it
still.
may just be the majors. I can't remember at that point.
Well, I think it is one per movie, but I'm still iffy on does that count the Spider-Man movies? You know, because I think that's
Yeah.
been like talked about as far as their Sony properties. Obviously, they're in MCU, but then that Fact or Fiction you did a while back ago of Tom Holland being in the M or Disney Plus, that may be it right there, right? Him
Hmm.
voicing something that could be it's a
Yeah.
cheat, but I I know you've been saying this the whole time since I've gone, but I'm in full agreement that I think that could get shifted and we'll get that earlier. The same way as we still may get it Moon Knight in 2021, but I still think there's a chance that comes like earlier than later 2021. I think the same thing about Marvel What If because that's the only thing we just have to see of Black Widow, Falcon, Winter Soldier. The real test is going to be these next few months.
Hmm.
And after WandaVision, and we have that investors call coming out, right? Remember? So maybe they'll
Yep.
say
December
something,
10th,
but
I think.
what's going to be telling is let's say we get to 2021 and we've heard nothing about Falcon Winter Soldier and we know that's done and they're editing it. I think that's a sign of, well, they really have to wait for Black Widow. They can't do anything. So I think it all comes down that unless they found a way, like I said, if there's some combining tissue between Falcon Winter Soldier and Black Widow, and let's say it's an end credit scene, I know it's weird, but maybe there could be a way to like switch them or switch some few things around. But if it's impossible to really switch things around and it has to go Black Widow, Falcon Winter Soldier, I think you're
Hmm.
completely right that What If could get called up like you're up next, kid, you know, and
Yeah,
I'd be
exactly.
very excited because I can't wait to see that show.
And I'm only a few episodes into Lovecraft Country, and it's very fascinating, very interesting. It just definitely deserves all the praise. And yes, I know I'm late to the game, but at this point, I was just like this is the show I kind of want to watch, knowing that it's done instead of waiting week to week for this one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily binge it, but I wanted to know it was kind of completed. But yeah, her composing on that one is definitely deserves all the praise as she did
Cool.
win I believe a primetime Emmy award for her work on the documentary Why We Hate. So again, it's going to be interesting, and I look forward to hearing it when it does. So
Yeah.
this next one goes under the fun category. These next two actually go to these were fun ways to end it at that point on a light news week. So Slash Film report the headline is Matthew McConaughey reveals Marvel Studios rejected him for MCU's Hulk role. So the conversation is just interesting. So, as reported by Slash Film, Matthew McConaughey spoke to Joshua Horowitz on the Happy Sad Confused podcast after being asked about his interest in playing Bruce or David or Banner or McConaughey had said that he had talked with Marvel Studios, but they weren't interested in the idea. So Horowitz says, "You never got a chance to play Bruce Banner or David Banner in the show, did you?" He says, "No, I didn't." Horowitz goes, "Jerks." Matthew McConaughey say, "I wanted it." He said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you ever throw your hat in the ring and did you say, 'Hey, I'm game if you guys are?'" He said, "Yep." He's like, no kidding. I said, yep. And they said, no, thank you.
So I'm gonna completely back Marvel on this one for two reasons. One, if you
just two,
just two, yeah. If you look at where he was, because I'm assuming he's talking. Do you think he's talking Edward Norton era when he started,
yes.
or do you think he? But no, here's my question: do you think he's starting that, or do you think he's talking after they're looking for a replacement for Edward Norton?
I think they're talking about. I think we didn't really go into a timeline, but my assessment is replacing Edward Norton.
So in that sense, I still think at that point in his career, that was before the classic McConaissance, right? That was before True Detective, Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar. That was right before well, especially casting wise. Avengers, I know, came out 2012, and Interstellar and all that was just a couple years after. But even casting, it would have been like 2011, starting to film. He was pegged for a while as like the rom-com guy, right? And I think for a while they probably wouldn't have wanted that Matthew McConaughey type, the roles he was taking. I think they would have looked at him and be like, no, the same way many people went, no, he can't do those type of roles. So I think one and two, I just don't. I don't personally think that's a good fit. I think Mark Ruffalo is a great actor. I'm not the biggest fan of this Bruce Banner. I like Norton's better. I think they've made sometimes Bruce a little too goofy in my opinion. Not even the Hulk, just sometimes I like the way Edward Norton played Banner. So I would have been interested in McConaughey. And again, I don't want to be like everyone else and be like, well, he couldn't have done it. It's a hard fit. I think he could have pulled it off, but I think that for me, when I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, that's fun. But this to me makes sense. And I still think he's one of those guys that he hasn't done one yet. And I'm very curious if he's going to and where he's going to end up. Because I could see him in Marvel and DC. He's a very acclaimed actor. But yeah, I'm not sure. I know there was rumors at some point about them maybe courting him for Guardians of the Galaxy at some point, maybe being Star-Lord's dad. So I think that was like maybe smaller rumors, but still, I think we'll see it at some point. Where I don't know, but I think this makes sense. He would have been an interesting banner though.
It would have been interesting at that point, and I'm going to plug and much bigger that doesn't need plugs at that point. One of the recent WTFs with Mark Maron, he sat down with Matthew McConaughey, and they talked about that point of his career where he basically told his agent, "I'm done with rom-coms.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something different." And he said, I had that very frank conversation with my wife at that point, and there were a couple of years because we didn't see Matthew McConaughey for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, to say that, oh, he just did. I know you're not saying this, but I mean, lest we forget, I mean, one of the biggest leaps to stardom was A Time to Kill for him. Yes, I know Dazed and Confused, but that's different. I'm talking about like showing that he has range at that point. Yeah. And so that was before even the rom-coms got into it. And so, I mean, I remember auditioning for a play with the ending with that summation. I won a role doing that. I mean, it's by far one of the greatest, speeches in movie history at that point. So, powerful, I mean, that was a young Matthew McConaughey in the sense of trying to bridge his Dazed and Confused to that. But I agree. I don't think I agree with Marvel. It's not the right casting for it. But again, it's just A, wasn't the right time. B, wasn't the right casting. Doesn't mean it's never been. And I don't think most interviews I've heard recently, because he is promoting I think a memoir at this point. A book at that point talking about kind of his career up to this point. I don't see him holding grudges. He's not the kind of guy that's like, oh, Marvel said no to me, screw him, I don't need him. I think, again, he got asked the question, he answered it. It's like, yeah, they said no, I offered it, and they said no thanks. So, still doesn't say he doesn't want to. It's just that one wasn't the right one.
Yeah, McConaughey seems like a very chill dude that would let things.
All right.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe they get him for Multiverse of Madness. He could play a what if Bruce. That's what they catch the itch. But no, with that conversation you're talking about with his career, it's just like that happens to a lot of actors where he started off that way, got on the map, but then he got in rom-coms, and that kind of becomes his thing. And it's also for those actors, the reason they stay in is because they can be quite profitable. Like if you look at something like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, that was a massive like rom-com movie. That was every female. So like my mom and all her friends, like that was a big one. So he would just go to rom-com. And that is like, you're a proven commodity in rom-com. So that's why he's going to get that and get really good prices and good deals and good contracts where, like you said, he had Time to Kill, but then there was a long stretch of not doing that. So it's like he was not a proven commodity in a True Detective, in an Interstellar. And then it took a few years for it. He made that change up, right? And it's good. And it worked.
Finally, someone gave him a chance to make that change up. I mean, he talks about how he had Dallas Buyers Club for years, and no one wanted to make
Yeah.
that movie.
And that happens tons of times with actors trying to make that shift. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's potential down the line, and I think he's a great actor. I don't really care where he
Oh,
goes,
he's
Marvel or
shown it. Yeah.
DC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want the right role. And even then, me saying the right role, there's a chance we could get in a different what if machine. He could play Bruce Banner. I would be like, you know what? He's a perfect Bruce Banner. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just on the surface. But you never know. Even though I think it would have been very fun to see him and Downey do something together. Even in the future, I'd like to see something like that. I think that's a fun combo. But yeah, I hope we see him down the line in something.
Yeah, maybe. So last story, we'll end on another fun note, is Marvel teases Ant-Man's time in the quantum realm during Avengers Ending could be explored in the future. So this is on Marvel Entertainment's website. Ava Star, aka Ghost, in a recap of her MCU backstory from Ant-Man and the Wasp are given the spotlight. So the key part of this is kind of the ending. It says after Janet Van Dyne is rescued from the quantum realm, she can sense Ava's unstable state and is able to partially heal Ava with some of her own quantum energy. Scott eventually goes back into the quantum realm to collect quantum healing particles just for her, which of course was mere moments before the blip happens. I still call it the snap. Happens, and he gets stuck there for 5 years, or in his time, 5 hours. But that's a story for another time, and that's where it ends. So it's interesting because do I think they could do this on film? Sure, they could talk about it a little bit more in the upcoming trilogy, Ant-Man 3, or this could just be a continuation of Marvel Entertainment doing it on their website and talking about it. But it does beg some interesting, what did happen more, because all we really get in Endgame is him saying, I was there for 5 hours, which became 5 years, difference at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, even still, like 5 hours is still a quote unquote long time. So what did he do for those 5 hours? It's just be a cool, even if it's like a web comic series at that point, it would be interesting just to explore that idea.
Well, it's funny because I'll give credit to Brent. I'm the same thing when this story came. I'm like, I just thought he was floating there. I didn't think there was anything. I didn't think there was anything to it. Because also in that state, it's like, is he kind of groggy? Is he kind of like maybe nauseous? So he's just in there. But it's funny because that term of that's a story for another time. Obviously, not just Mcconaughey using a Force Awakens, which we never get, those bastards. We we have heard that before in Marvel from the Russo brothers. Speaking of, well, what did happen with Cap? And he said they talked about like him going to live in the stores. Here, I have stores from the future. No, the stones, and like what happens when he bumped into Red Skull. And they said in an interview, oh, that's an interesting story. Maybe another time. Now, I feel like this could be a different series than What If, as far as like you take little, almost like what the Marvel one shots were of like that one time where Marvel or Coulson on the way to Thor's hammer, he had to fill up his gas tank and something happened, right? I could see an animated series where maybe they do that because on film, I don't know, unless it has something to do with Ant-Man 3. And like, let's say he meets Kang the Conqueror. Unless it's something to do with that, I don't know what it could be. It could just be him chilling out and seeing Michelle Pfeiffer's new city she built, something like that. It could be something fun. So that's why I could see there being some sort of series. I don't know what it would be, whether it be MCU stories, Marvel stories, whatever it be. And it's like What If, but it is actual canon stories, but it is what happened. But same thing as if Chris Evans let's say he never ever comes back at all for Captain America, and they say, oh, that's an interesting story. You can't tell that story without him unless he maybe does the voice or something like that. So I don't know. We obviously aren't behind the scenes. So if there's something that makes sense and fits, then we'll see in live action. But I think there is even in comic books, a realm where you could do these stories and show what did happen in this, what did happen. There you go. We just call it What Happened. And that's it. We're done. Marvel, what happened? Boom. What if and what happened?
Well, it kind of begs, it's a little different at that point. We'll give our Star Wars Alliance colleagues, Katie and Nathan, a shout at that point, the book series, from a different point of view, at that point. So it's kind of like Marvel. It's same and different in that point. It's just like you said, I really do miss those one shots. I love that they included them, and I can understand from a money perspective, they don't really make anything on it per se outside of it's on the disc you're already buying anyways, or the digital download. But
Disney Plus now is different.
No, it is. I'm just saying at the time at that point. So it could be something very, very interesting in a collection. Like I said, if they wanted to do it like a web comic series at that point, go for it. If they want to put it on shorts on Disney Plus, or like you said, what happened,
And then
So
and then they'll get The Rock, and he'll host What's Cooking, Marvel What's Cooking, and that's just him.
The Marvel DC crossover we never knew we wanted.
It's just him on Disney Plus hosting a cooking show with Marvel and DC people, like what Jon Favreau does with Chef. He does it, but with with The Rock and Disney.
No, let's just say cooking breakfast with The Rock, because that's his favorite cheap thing to do on cheat day. Those chocolate chip pancakes.
Oh yeah, well, no, then he can get each MCU star to see how many pancakes. It's like hot ones, but with pancakes, and see how many they could eat. How far can they get?
Okay, you got to see growth here, listeners. I brought up the food twice on this show, exactly. Twice already.
I was gone for a month, and slowly the remnants took over. But
yeah. So, but yeah, that's the news. Again, some stuff to chew on, some light, fun stuff at that point. But that's the news.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about this all the time in a real world sense with the election going on. I think with DC Star Wars, you're gonna get with this week and next week, it's gonna be very light on news because there's gonna be bigger topics and bigger stuff than who's playing Dr. Fate. It's gonna be like, what is the state of America? And who's running
you respect Dr. Fate.
No, I cannot wait to see who plays Dr. Fate. Those Sam Rockwell rumors, I go, oh really? But I'm very excited for that. So that's what I think for the next 2 weeks. We'll see if we got nothing. If next week's another lighter, we'll do it on a regular day, and maybe we'll do some like a big topic or something like that. But,
we've got some storage topics. I've been adding to the list over the last couple of months of ideas.
So yeah, we're gonna throw to an ad break right now, just before we go into Fact or Fiction, Comic Book Club, and Corner, which me and Chris both call different things. He calls Corner, I call Club. I've realized that a few weeks ago. I was like, we have a segment on the show that we both call different things, but you know what? That's how we roll. I haven't
even noticed until now.
It's our Star-Lord rocket. I'm the captain. No, I'm the captain. But no, we're gonna throw some ads right now, and then we'll be right back. And we're back. I should pull up the Fact or Fiction because we have
we'll as you pull it up, we can go to our listener question first. It happens to be a Fact or Fiction. So our good buddy Tony at Walt Gator, he is one of our other co-hosts of Ranger Alliance at that point. So make sure you listen to that first show. Again, we're plugging that show away. Give it a good listen at that point. But he proposed a Fact or Fiction to us. Fact or Fiction: Miles will come from either the Amazing Spider-Man universe or Sam Raimi's universe instead of Tom Holland's.
I was very happy he asked this because at one point I was going to do when the Jackman thing didn't come out, I was going to talk about some stuff that I'd missed. And that's one of the things I want to talk about because in some of those smaller tier rumors, they're talking about Toby and Andrew, they have potential more plans for them down the line. And that's what I was going to ask as far as, and I'll answer the Fact or Fiction, but I want to ask Chris first as far as it. So let's say that is the scenario. One of them is going to be the Miles Spider-Man, and then one is going to be on their own. Who's the one on their own, and what do you do with them? Because in my scenario, it's like, okay, Toby's the older guy, so he gets Miles, he passes it down. But then what do you do with Andrew? And I still, again, it's different because, who knows, it's awkward. I don't think it is. They've remained on friendly terms, but I have always still been pitching of I really want Emma Stone as Spider-Gwen as a really fun kind of whatever multiverse. And I thought, is that some sort of scenario? That was my thing of how do they get Andrew to carry on in a movie? Because I also feel like he's kind of done with Spider-Man. I've always said that before in press, but I was very interested in that.
Yeah, I think it's just tougher in the sense of Andrew didn't get to close out a trilogy.
Yeah.
You had a really, I think, a definitely strong first opening at that point, and then the second one just got very muddled in different ways. But you're right. If it's going to come, if the proposition is, I'm going to go on the idea, will it come from either one? I'm not going to consider Tom Holland at that point. Yeah. I'll take the idea of either or, because again, Miles does exist in Tom Holland's universe. So it's kind of hard not to acknowledge that. Well, it'd be different if they've never said anything or didn't make that phone call that we all saw. So, I agree with you. I think it comes from Sam Raimi's just because it carries more weight in the sense of that Tom did get to finish the trilogy at that point. But again, taking the whole question at that point, I still think there's room for Miles in the MCU and in Tom Holland. So I'm gonna go fiction at this point, just because I'm still in a wait and see exactly if this Toby and Garfield coming into the third one. I'm still waiting to see.
I'm fiction as well too, because I know you and Katie talked about 2 weeks ago that audition that possibly leaked, and I know there was the in the words. It's like could be minor spoilers, but it was like Miles talking about how Spider-Man's dead and blah blah. That could easily be something in the MCU where Tom Holland seems to have died, or Spider-Man has seemed to have died. Like there's a commotion. All they find is an exploded Spider-Man suit or a mask, and they just presume he's dead, right? And maybe that's where he fakes his death. Like, I agree with you. If
It's
they had
called
not
Into the Spider-Verse.
exactly, right? I had assumed that if they had not mentioned Miles, then sure, we get him from another universe. But if they go with that audition tape's real, unless that to me is the most dirtiest way to do Andrew Garfield. If he Miles comes into this universe and he's like, yeah, the Spider-Man died in my universe, and it's just like an image of Andrew Garfield, and Toby gets to come and play, and they just kill off Andrew, unless he's like, yeah, I don't want it. But if they're like, you know what? We're gonna kill off Andrew's Toby and have him be the one that had Miles. I would say, like, oh, that sucks. But I'll say fiction too, because they introduced Miles, I think, for a reason. There was the 5-year snap / blip that you can age him up to a little bit. You could have that mentor relationship, and I still think Tom Holland is still too young, but
He
still
is too
like
young. Yeah,
if you
in my
have him
opinion.
even as like a kid Miles, like I guess if Tom Holland is like 22 to 25 and Miles is 16, it's like you could still pass some things down. It's not the exact same, but it still is that thing. I don't know, but I'll say fiction to be safe because the Toby and Andrew of it all, I don't know. And I guess it just depends on that audition tape. We've seen audition tapes before that mean nothing, but I also wouldn't want them to say, hey, he did come from Toby's universe and Toby's just dead. I feel like that's a movie in itself. You know, like I feel like you got to have a movie with Toby, he dies, and then somehow that Miles like Spider-Verse like ends up in the MCU. I don't want him to just come from and be like, yeah, the Sam Raimi movies, I just got back from him. Toby got messed up by the lizard. He's gone. And it's just like, oh, well, that's a bummer.
The unmade Spider-Man 4.
Yeah, or Vulturous. Anne Hathaway's going to fly in with that terrible character decision. We got her as Black Cat. Perfect casting. Well, you know what? Midway through production, let's make her Vulturous. No wonder why Spider-Man 4 didn't happen. You know, it's just like, what were they thinking? Vulturous. Like, come on now. The Vulture's going to have a daughter. And you know what we're going to call her? What are we going to call her? We call him Vulture.
I am so waiting for Sean O'Connell's book looking at everything going on with Spider-Man.
I can't wait. There's been like, it's just even the fact that at one point we had Norman Osborn's frozen head as a plot point that got taken out. You know, like there's been some weird stuff with Spider-Man. And I think that's that's what we don't know for sure the full story, but that apparently was the story that they writ Spider-Man 4. They were writing Black Cat, they cast Anne Hathaway, and then midway they're like, no, we're going to change it to Vulturous. And it's just like, as an actress, I feel like, this is not really what I want. And it's kind of fun that she went on to play Catwoman. So I'm with you that one, I'm excited for that book, but two, I'll say fiction because I think it's more organic, even if Tom Holland's too young for him to come through the MCU.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've got Greg's proposals for his fact or fiction. So where are they at with the voting?
So the first one, I'm surprised this was not a clean sweep. Moon Knight will transition into films after this Disney Plus series. 80% fact, 20% fiction. There's still some people thinking fiction. I guess I'm just assuming all these Disney Plus characters will at some point make even an appearance. So maybe that's it. The second one, there will be a semi-major to major character death in Falcon Winter Soldier. Obviously, as fact on the last one. I would be fact on this as far as you brought last week, like Sharon Carter, possible contender to go. I don't think we'll see Falcon or Bucky go.
Kind of ends the possibility if you take out either one.
So I know I'm pretty much just saying that like I think Agent Carter could die in that, you know. And then the last one, the MCU will use time travel again, aka Endgame. Another one I was facting this as well, 88% fact, 12% fiction. Another one that I was surprised. I think that would be 100% fact because I just think it's gonna, like you brought up last week, Kang is coming. He's a master of time. Like
exactly, it's gonna happen.
We're definitely going back there. So it is my turn this week to bring them up.
I've gotten rusty. I've gotten privileged with you being gone. I was like, I'm putting it on the guest outside of the first week when Brent was on because I actually had some said I got to start building them up for next week.
Well, it's good. My whole time gone, I have some of the backlog now, ones I could use. So I'm kind of happy about that. So this was kind of funny timing because someone tweeted out that, oh, Daredevil becomes, like property, discussing film, like they could start using them. So it's kind of tied in that. I said Luke Cage will be the first to appear in the MCU, or maybe I'll take out the first. Luke Cage will appear in the MCU before Jessica Jones and or Iron Fist.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that just because, people still joke about Iron Fist, still joke about, and that was probably
I am
one of
the
the
Iron Fist.
many things at that point. I will be the ones to think second season was better at that point, but it definitely is the low point in my mind for Netflix Marvel. And I think even if it's not the actor who played Luke Cage at that point, I still think he's a very dynamic character that can be brought into whether it be another Disney Plus show or into the MCU. So yeah, I will agree with that. With those choices, Jessica Jones is going to be interesting just because that show was outstanding. It got a little bit, it kind of waned in the later season.
That third season for me is actually I'm something that I think that Jessica Jones' first season is on par with some of those Daredevil best seasons.
Yes,
the other two are very rocky in my opinion. Like they really go up, and they have some up episodes and they have some major down episodes.
Yeah, and I will say it kind of ranks in my mind. It's Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage. Pretty close in that order. And I know obviously Luke Cage got a second season at that point. Well, so did Punisher too. At that point. So, but I think that just the dynamic, and then Jessica Jones, like you said, that one season definitely is the epitome at that point. But Jessica Jones is going to be interesting to see if they bring her into at that point, where do they fit her in?
That's why I threw her in, because Iron Fist was like an easy one. And the reason I didn't throw the reason I didn't throw in Daredevil just because I feel like it's not a foregone conclusion, but I feel like we will get him not pretty soon here, this year. But I feel like
let me add something to that. We're getting Shang-Chi.
Yes.
All right. So that's where I could see him coming into that. I don't foresee him at all being in this first one at that point, but it could be a way to work in the MCU's version of Danny Rand.
I think it could be eventually. I took it as the opposite of saying she is like the replacement for Iron Fist as far as
I agree. I'm just saying if we're gonna bring in Iron Fist, I don't see it as a standalone at this point. I think it's gonna be worked its way through.
I could see that. I think so. I'm fact on this as well, because Iron Fist I think has a little stink off him. I think I like those first two seasons. Yeah, he does. I'm also very biased. I'm a big fan of Danny Rand, the character, and I like those seasons a lot more than other people. But I do agree with you as far as Netflix low point. It is there with the third season, Jessica Jones. I think that was not a good season. I think Jessica Jones, that show, suffered the same thing from Dexter. Suffered from a lot of things, but Dexter after season 4 was like, had he topped the Trinity Killer, I think Jessica Jones was the same way with Kilgrave. Of, you did Kilgrave right out the gate, and I was like, how can we top that? And they never got to that close of that dynamic with Jessica and Kilgrave. It was very good, very well acted. They touched upon it in the shows, but it was never that height again. So it's an interesting character. I don't know what they would do, because she's definitely taking the more mature route, and not the Deadpool mature route as far as like I'm making taco and poop jokes, like in the mature route where she's dealing with sexual assault, she's dealing with PTSD, she's dealing with very adult, real world traumatic issues. So it's not something like we're getting in the MCU. We're talking about race, we're talking about mental health, but that is another bridge where it's like, hey, this is like another big step, and maybe we could get there eventually. My theory is we could do, I think they did it a few years ago, and I read the first, I think, run of it. They did a Luke Cage Iron Fist combo comic. I could see them doing that with those characters, as far as Luke Cage and Jessica Jones are already together. It's while she's pregnant, having the kid. They're already the what is their combination name? It's not Heroes for Hire. So like I could see a Heroes for Hire down the line. So maybe Luke Cage and them come at the same time. But if I had to pick one, I think, like you said, Luke Cage could fit into many sections of the MCU down the line. He could even be Avengers. He's been on the Avengers before, and maybe some way he gets roped into the whatever's going on. And
he also led the Thunderbolts.
Well, exactly that too. So there's some doors. So that is my first one. My second one. Yeah, I'll do the second one. One of the Phase 4 films for the MCU will go to Disney Plus.
So you talk about film going to Disney Plus.
Yep. So obviously, this is probably the films I'm talking about is probably Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals, because that's the nearest in this new world. Things are changing. The other ones could be safe, could be the theaters. And I'm not talking about like Well, I don't know, I guess to clarify, because what would happen if some places could have theaters? I guess I'll just say just in general, because like what I was saying is like some places are going to have theaters, and they said, well, if you have theaters, we'll put in theaters. If not, it's Disney Plus, right? But I'll just say at all is you're going to see one of these Phase 4 films.
I say,
It's a tough one, right?
This is a good one. It's one of those hard head kind of things, and
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have to go with my head on this one. I said I don't see it yet. I still think we will get these in the theaters at that point, whatever the theaters. I think that they are waiting to see what shakes out of the, a post-COVID theater going
Oh yeah.
experience. And I don't, so I could see this being maybe more Phase 5 once we see exactly what the rebel is from that. But I think right now, I think there's too much on the line, and especially with movies like Shang-Chi, that they deserve to have that kind of moment like Black Panther had of going to the theaters and things like that. I know. And again, I'm not saying $1 billion, things like that. I hope it does get $1 billion. I think it's a great springboard for that. But my heart, yes, wants it on Disney Plus. I just don't. Everything that we've seen from the studios at that point, and yes, I know Disney put on Onward, but remember that came out in theaters first and right at the worst time when COVID struck. So it was a little bit easier. Neither one of all these MCU ones have a lot of writing on it. Why we haven't seen Wonder Woman 84 yet on HBO Max. They're not ready to make that. Once we see a caliber like Black Widow, Wonder Woman 84, that bypasses theaters or has a very, very, very short run in theaters before going on to a streaming service, not VOD, streaming service.
Yeah.
That is when the die has been cast. We're not there yet.
Yeah. It's tough because this is a question. That's why I picked it, that you could ask in 6 months and have a completely different answer. Right. So I'll take the opposite route, and I'll say fact. I'll say fact. Just
you don't have to.
Yeah, no, I don't have to, but it's tough because me saying fact sounds bad because it feels like that's me saying that I don't think the world's gonna get better, and it's just it's one of these things that when this started, everyone was like, "Well, this is gonna be a few months, and we're gonna be good," and then it just feels like the more we go on, the longer everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be a few months," and then we hit those few months, and then people say, "Oh, a few more months," like, "Oh, at this time," and then it's always like, "Well, by 2021, things should be back to normal." Well, by mid 2021, well, at the end of 2021, things should be back to normal. And that's where it's like, obviously, I hope things like we just talked about Halloween. Halloween was a weird season this year. It was like a very muffled Halloween. It was nothing I really enjoyed other than my kids had a great time. So I was happy. But that's why I'll say fact, is because it's been so unpredictable. I could see eventually them pulling the trigger and doing it. I've been looking at this, like, because it is that first year. I don't know what else as far as, I don't see Thor Love and Thunder. I definitely don't see Doctor Strange going there, just because that's going to be, I think, one of their tentpole ones. So that's why I felt it would be one of these three. And if it would be one, unfortunately, I think it could be Eternals, because I don't know. I'm not reading this as a bad sign. I just thought it was interesting that them and Shang-Chi switched places,
Yeah. I mean, I think that has to do with just story at that point and kind of where things shifted and what they may be doing on Disney Plus, maybe, and where they're kind of positioning marketing. But I just, like I said, I am been a proponent of, yes, streaming is eventually the future, but again, I just don't see them outright making that move. When it happens, and it will happen in my mind, and that's fine. I'll be the one saying, "Oh, it didn't happen. You said it. That's fine. I'll eat crow on that one, because that is what it is." But I just don't see it right now. I see it happening eventually, but until we get a huge budget, Tenet level, Wonder Woman 84, Black Widow,
Bond.
Bond, you see them dabbling in it, but they're just not there yet. People aren't willing to take that on yet.
Do you think if they get a healthy subscription bump with Soul, that starts to put the gears in their mind a little bit more to be like, is there a possibility of doing this in March, come time Black Widow or May? And it's like the world's still not really recovered. Like,
I think the problem is that's animated. It's a different ballgame.
Yeah. But I mean, if there's a bump in Soul, don't you think
I think it's better because animation does sell more. And again, Mulan had its own issues going along with that in the press and things like that. It just didn't have the excitement there. I think if I want to see how they're going to market Soul, because I think everything I've heard, everything I've read is, yes, this is another home run for Disney Pixar. It looks outstanding, and I really hate it for them that this movie is not going to be seen in theaters, because the trailers, the story, I think it is outstanding work, and I know this is, whenever we have Oscars, this is definitely a Oscar worthy if for animation winner, if not possibility for Best Picture.
Mhm.
So,
well, it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see where the votes go on that one, because that's always like that's one of the biggest
that's
buddy
head
topics,
heart.
right?
That's very head heart.
Here's talking about animation. Here's the fun one I want to think. I thought of multiple ways to word this, but I think I narrowed down. Marvel Studios will produce an animated theatrical film. So I'm not even saying it has to be MCU like connected, just kind of Spider-Verse, where their company, they'll put something out. I don't know if it's themselves. I don't know if it's what my dream project is them and Pixar coming on a stage one day and say, hey, Pixar is making a Marvel movie, whatever it is. Who knows? But that's what I'll say. Marvel Studios will produce a theatrical Marvel film.
Yeah, I could go fact on that one. I mean, they've done way back when. If you want to dig them up, I think some of my favorite ones were the Avengers animated ones. At that point, which basically was the Ultimate Universe. At that point, just animated, which were great. And I believe I have Iron Man and Doctor Strange. I don't think I have the Hulk one. I don't own that one necessarily, but I enjoyed it. I think they can see exactly that Into the Spider-Verse. It made great money. I think it could have made more money at that point, but I think that's definitely proof of concept that people can really do want to see that. Because what if it's a whole different ball game at that point? But I definitely say fact that that's not if, but when.
I'll say fact too, because I guess I should have. I guess you're right. I should have put some sort of time on it, because I did the classic ever. Because we could be dead and they'll be like, "We're making Cosmic Ghost Rider," but like maybe that's
darn right. That's where they're gonna start. That's where the stake will be lied. Cosmic Ghost Rider with their first animated.
I would even question that. Be like, guys, there might be a better one to lead with. Not that I wouldn't want to see it, but if they're looking for money wise, like, you might want to do like Hulk and his friends, like let's let's get out there. So let's see, you dropped I think you dropped a dab emoji, Katie. I'm not sure in the YouTube chat. I've never seen this emoji. I think it's a dab. If not, I'm not sure. Katie from Star Wars Island says, I don't think it'll be theatrical. They'll come up with some DC level animated movies, though. It could be. I think what if's the telling of like,
is she knocking DC animated?
What? I don't think so. I think she's just saying it'll be like just a direct-to-video or like streaming and stuff like that.
Maybe it was your tone that carried what you were reading.
I'm probably still confused about the dab. I just want to drop emoji and saw that one. Fair enough, Katie. So I think it will happen, and like I said, I really want to, because technically it's kind of, there's some sort of weird partnership with Big Hero 6 or something like that, where there's some sort of Marvel tie to it, because Stanley is in that. So I know that one might say that counts, but I mean like hey, this is, Iron Man coming to a theater near you, and it's whatever it is, and not MCU. But I think the fact that they announced What If gets me very excited that they are dipping their toes in animation. DC has completely killed them in that game. Not only the quantity of it, but the quality. I liked some of those Marvel ones. Even the Doctor Strange one was good, but it's just, they've done some really great stuff. Like look at something like The Dark Knight Returns. Those two parts together are god tier as far as animated superhero stuff. So I really want them to. And like I said, my dream is I would love them to partner with Pixar. I just feel like whether it's that or Star Wars, I feel like that is just something waiting to happen. It's just like to have that animation with a Marvel movie. Oh my goodness. That would just be fantastic. And that's where, pick a character almost like Doctor Strange or somewhere you could get super trippy and not have to worry about budgets. Like, of course, animation has a budget, but not like a live action budget. So I'm fact more in a sense of, I want it to happen. I think Kay said no to my Pixar Star Wars. I don't know. You Star Wars people are so picky. Greg last week, I don't want Marvel affecting my Star Wars. Oh, it's fun. Get out of it. These are just IP. It's like mixing different colors of or flavors of Slurpee, like live a little. It's not going to happen. If they do a Pixar animated, Katie, they're not going to nothing's going to happen with Star Wars. Darth Vader's still going to be Luke's father. Mandalorian's still going to be highly overrated. Nothing's going to change. It's all going to be Chris's face on the video.
No, I've heard you. I heard your review on Geekverse, so it's not too surprising to me. I still think, well, it's Travis, so it takes a lot to reach up to his level on that one.
She said no, that I was just dissing DC. Oh, good. So I just ranted for no reason. But you know what? It still stands. You never know nowadays. But yeah, I like Mandalorian. It was a fun episode. I love Timothy
You don't have to
Olyphant.
defend it. I'm not trying to hash that out.
Everybody, especially our GV fan Discord group, I just have to remain silent because everyone loves it. People are throwing 10s out of 10s and stuff like that. I just go, well, I like Timothy Olyphant's hair. You listen to my GV review. I do not hate the show. I really enjoy the show.
They really should put. You know what? I think they should really make a show him as a sheriff. I think that's going to be a great concept.
Oh yeah, there should be. He should be like a marshal.
It's like they should have done that years ago. I just don't know why.
Yeah.
If you can't sense my sarcasm, yes, I know Justified happened.
Katie says, Chris, he's totally ignoring me.
Yes, he is. He's doing that on purpose.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the Fact or Fiction. We'll take a quick little ad break here, and then we're going to come back with the Come Book Club / Coroner, Ghost Rider, Cosmic Ghost Rider, issue number 3. And we're back. We're back from rants and Fact or Fictions. I forgot to mention, as always, those will be on Twitter. Go vote for them. Let me know. And yeah, we'll discuss. So Cosmic Ghost Rider number 3. I had, like I said, this is my second read through. And I had remembered this one coming up because we talked about last week of like, oh man, there's some exciting things about to happen. I just forgot how completely batshit bonkers it is. it's just nuts, especially that middle half where Slide and then in quote, like put it in number. It's literally just like kind of like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. It's like Cosmic Ghost Rider kills Marvel Legacy. Every character you can think of, every iteration almost is coming through, and it is just a sight to behold. And this is just a hell of a fun issue.
It really is at that point, just him. I think it just even starts off, it's one of those like Marvel covers. Oh, they're really going to get into it with this version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Nope, that's just called covers that don't really add up to much of anything at that point because you get we get introduced to this. We talked about who they were last issue, but this is where you really got them named at that point. And then all of a sudden, like there's Galactus' hand and wipes them all out except for Cable.
Like 3 panels in, they're just gone. You see Juggernaut's like head just cut off, everything, like arms gone, Cable lost it. It's like, I remember, like you said, but this is where I liked it because some covers do that where it's like, oh, this didn't really have much to do with the story. This cover and this story, this run feels like that's an on purpose of like, here's the big setup, and then we take away. Like it feels like it's almost like part of the joke. So that's why I really like that use of like, let's make the cover these new Guardians. They're going to be a big story, and nope, it just comes in. But it still happens because we get multiple versions of the Guardian Galaxies because Cable 3 times comes back like, these are the new Guardians.
We got Cloak, Dagger, Thing, and Gambit. Then we got
Gambit with a goatee.
Yeah, and then we did get it confirmed, as most of us thought it was Uatu, the Watcher, at that point. And it's like as he keeps on sliding and adding more, he gets older and older and older. We get Moon Knight's head at one point. Scummer,
I know, in the Mr.
Summers.
Knight outfit, yeah.
Yeah, we get like War Machine, Rogue, Hulk, Wolverine, Beta Ray Bill. I mean, it's literally just the who's who of. I mean, we even get like an Iron Fist mixed with Miss Marvel, I think.
Yeah, and we get that like Spider-Man ninja thing in the back where he's like has a wrestler, like a professional bodies wrestler.
Yeah.
He's like huge and stuff, and it's just like, oh, it was just so much fun. And that's what we've talked about before. This run, everything, they just decided, they sat down. It feels like obviously they worked on the art, the story, but I just think they looked at each other and went, no matter what, we gotta make sure we have some fun with this. And that's exactly what they did. And you can feel that it's infectious when you're reading it, and just the panels of just the chain whipping around and going. And it's just like, it does make sense because I know when I read the first time, like, could Cosmic Ghost Rider really take out all these people? And again, it always comes down to the writer because the writer can write whoever they want to win in any fight. But it's like, okay, well, you know what? He does have the Ghost Rider powers. He is Frank Castle and he is cosmic. So he is an ultimate like killing machine. And it shows it right here where he is, like I said, killing the Marvel Universe, killing the Marvel Legacy. And then you get these little clip glances of baby Thanos like through the arms, like looking just his eyes.
Beating him with an end of his life.
And you just see it and you're like, oh no, exactly what Frank wanted not to happen is happening. He is seeing all this bloodshed. Because then at first, even when he was driving away, he's like, why don't you just murder him? He's like, no, I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to be a good example for you. He's like, yeah, but you could just get rid of him. He's like, well, I know I could. It'd be very easy to. So it was a good back and forth. And then obviously that leads to a big reveal at the end.
Yeah, the big reveal, Cable is finally taken out at that point. He's warning him, so you don't understand, Frank. The Thanos you raised, you think you know, but you don't. He's worse. Oh, God, so much worse. Please, Frank, you have to. And then blam, we see his cybernetic or mystical cybernetic eye at that point left into, oh, no way. "Hey, Dad, sorry I'm late." And there's Thanos grown up wearing the Punisher shirt
Scary image.
with a shotgun. I was like, "Oh God, he really was right. He's a lot worse than before."
Well, we had talked about that, right? As far as why some characters were concerned that this was an awful idea, and we with Uatu, he brought that up last week. Like, if you don't see why this is a bad idea, you're too far gone. We talked about that. I think the very first issue of if things go wrong, imagine a Thanos who's already a destroyer of worlds, planets, conqueror of people. And that was just him growing up in his regular culture. That, yeah, sure has some warriors, but Frank Castle, who in the Marvel Universe is hailed as one of these all-time A-tier warriors, if you have that man now raising Thanos, who's going to become a murderer, he's even more so skilled. And I just love, like, that's why I do love this series, because just seeing Thanos walk out in the very, very tight Frank Castle skull shirt, and it's just like, it's just an image. If you would ask me, like, even, if you would ask me 6 months before this issue started, like, hey, do you think you'll ever see Thanos wearing the Punisher t-shirt? I'd be like, no, that wouldn't make any sense. But they make it funny, but they also make it make sense, and it shows where it's going. And again, when he walks in, "Hey, Dad," it's like, again, we talked about that Civil War. I feel like these past 2 issues, the first one was the setup, but these last 2 issues have been good at that last panel, wanting you to have more. It makes you right away be like, and I didn't read it because I know we're going to cover it next week, so I like to have it fresh, but right away I was like, oh, I want to just keep reading because it's just such a good story. And I might even do that and then just reread it again. But I think these last 2 issues have been great as far as that little hook, that keeps you there and like wanting more.
Exactly. And I love this run so much. And I knew, because I kind of mentioned when we first started this ties directly into Donny Cates's run on Thanos. Thanos wins at that point. And so, yes, I own Marvel Unlimited, but I'm the kind of person, if I really like the story, I'm going to pick it up in physical at that point. Highly, highly recommend, if you want that kind of all put together in the right way, pick up Thanos by Donny Cates. That includes his full Thanos wins run, all the annuals and one shots, and Cosmic Ghost Rider, all included in the
that's
way.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yep. So
I just have them digital on Marvel. So
Yep. So I'm that kind of person, which brings up one of my possibilities of, if we're in a low week, a debate about that. So digital and physical. So,
but I couldn't debate it, because I'm the only reason I've done digital is because the comic book stores here, and obviously there's been online stuff, but we have, like, our comic book store is our library, or not, is our like bookstore, and it's like they have a little section, but it's mostly legacy stuff. It's mostly this is Killing Joke, Civil War stuff, where it's like, okay, I could find this online very easily. So that's what started me when I wanted to keep up, especially when I was doing the keep up was with Batman 52 era, and when they did all new Wolverine, or sorry, Marvel. I was giving some shots because it was rebranding, but no, I physical is still the way to go. Anytime I read on a computer, versus in hand.
Well, we'll talk about that. We don't want to ruin everything right now. One day we'll get into that. But I want to make an announcement for our next one, because we said this one's going to be one that we choose, if I'm not mistaken. So what we're going to do for our next one, and so we've got 2 more issues of Cosmic Ghost Rider left at that point. Our next one is going to be Tom King's 2015-2016 Vision 12-issue miniseries at that point. So it's going to tie into WandaVision. We still don't have a confirmed date for December.
Not November.
It's not. It's looking more and more not November. But again, doesn't mean like we can't have a shadow one. But we're going with the idea of December. So in lead up of this is not the. This is one of the series that they are basing the show off of. This is not the thing at that point, because we talked about how they're different runs of this kind of idea of the storyline, but it is probably the most recent and definitely very acclaimed by Tom King for Marvel. It is obviously available on Marvel Unlimited, all the issues. Currently, Comixology Unlimited has the first 6 issues on Unlimited. The last 6 issues are available to purchase single or in a collected at that point. So again, always wait for those sales. They have one every day, if not always on the weekend. So, but that's where we're going. So you got 3 weeks until we do that, but we wanted to let you all know that now to start planning ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. We're going to be doing that in the future, of tying it with sort of certain ones, just because it works for the show as far as promotion, but it's just kind of fun. I've read that one. It's great. That was kind of my introduction to Tom King. I got very excited for his Batman run. His Batman run is all right. I'm kind of with some of the majority of, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I still like a lot of his work. So, and I haven't read, have you read, I guess probably not, you've waited. I've talked to Jim about it, but I'm interested to read his Rorschach. Jim told me that.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to kind of wait till it's kind of collected, as I always do with those kind of big ones. But I do like that it's kind of confirmed, kind of not saying, but pretty darn close, that the Watchmen TV show is canon in this universe.
Yeah, and I'm excited because it's tough. Because I said, "Would you recommend it?" He said, "Well, if you're a fan of Tom King, he says he's not a big fan of Tom King, but if you are and you like his work, he'd recommend it." But then I go, "Well, I love a lot of his work, but then there's other where I go, man, so it's like I'm very much in the 50s, so I'm gonna maybe wait a little bit." And because Rorschach, obviously a big character from Watchmen, I enjoy. So yeah, I'm very excited to do this with the show, and especially it's gonna have a nice overlap because I imagine we're gonna start before the show, but then there'll be a few kind of maybe episodes that'll have the show review. I was talking about the show and then that, and I think it's gonna be fun because I think there's gonna be the same way when we did Civil War, and then we talked about how there's lots of tributes in the actual movie to it. We could be watching the show and literally be like, "Oh, we just read this last week," and there's like a full clear Easter egg moment of like this, like similar panels, right? Even there's not been an exact image from a panel, but even just that vision of the doorstep, them together in like regular clothes, it looks very, like you said, it's definitely one of the biggest aspirations or inspirations for it. So I'm excited. I think it'll be fun.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm now that Tom King's run's concluded at that point. Yes, I know everything that happens in it, but I haven't read through it at that point. That's when I'm doing my massive backlog, which will never be completed at that point, just because. Never. But I'm doing a DC and a Marvel. My DC one, I'm on volume 3 of Tom King's run. So now finished I Am Suicide, so now I'm heading into I Am Bane, and for Marvel I just wrapped up the Hawkeye series by Fraction, and so now I'm gonna go back and do my my Dawn of X in trade at that point, where each volume collects the number ones. The first volume's all the number ones, the next one's volume number 2s, and it goes through it like that. So
yeah, well, I'm happy to be back. It was lighter news, but we had some good conversations. We had some, as you guys would say, chase some squirrels and whatnot. And
always.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be back. I'll be back next week 100% for sure. And then after that, we'll figure out. But yeah, I will see what happens next week. But if not, I'm just happy to be talking with some Marvel with you again, my friend. Until we'll have to put it aside till Saturday, because Saturday, podcast versus podcaster, Marvel brother versus Marvel brother. But yeah.
I'm looking forward to a good time. At that point, yes, SCS will hopefully Greg will definitely want me to say will come out ahead at that point. I'm not being wishy-washy. My loyalties will be with SCS at that point.
I know I forgot to put in the Factor Fictions. I was going to throw you a Factor Fiction. SCS will lose to the Geekers.
It is a fiction at that point. We're gonna we may only get 2 questions more right than you would when it comes down to the end, where it's basically a 5-3 win at that point. But we'll go with Vin Diesel. It doesn't matter by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. So
I haven't thought of, because I just started thinking about this last night, is if it is a tie, I have no idea what's going to happen, and we may just have to call it a tie and hold it off to the next year.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, because what happens, those hosts, is like, let's say they leave the call. How do we decide which category do we do the tiebreaker with? Like,
we come back and together and we do alternating sack man races at that point. We'll get into the sack and do we'll do this virtually at that point. We'll come on, you guys. I saw you guys streaming the Switch your Switch stream at that point. We can figure out something.
We would have to figure out something. So hopefully it doesn't come to a tie. I want a clear winner. But yeah, like Chris said, check that all out. As always, you can find me at Trust Me Snell. Follow me this week because I think we're gonna have some fun. I'm posting a video later of some fun. I got some just good promotion, and I have if anyone's watching, I'm not gonna say it here, but I have my outfit picked up for the stream. Chris, do you know what that is? Do you know what that is at all?
Put it up to the camera again.
It's a tease. I don't want to show the full thing. It may or may not be from the only DC film we got this year of a certain character.
Interestingly enough, I did look at my Apple Wallet, and that is the last. That is my only electronic ticket left. Maybe I'm just not getting rid of it yet because I was like, remember when I went to that movie? Remember that was the last movie I saw.
Oh, I thought you meant the jacket, but you'll see. See. I have an outfit picked out. It's a running joke on the charity streams. I usually have about 5 to 6 outfits. I change for each segment. One year it was suits. It was a very unfortunate call. It took a lot of time and it was really hot. I'll never do that again. I only do 1 suit per stream. But you can find me Trust Me Snell. We're gonna have lots of fun, and I'll be excited next week to get some more Marvel news. Maybe Hugh Jackman just lets it slip and says, "Hey, I'm playing Doctor Doom."
I'm going to the gym after this, so maybe I'll catch you if you decided to pop
You
into
bump
where I
into
live
him,
at
yeah,
that
get that
point. You know, just
scoop.
coming through North Carolina just for fun. So, but yeah, so yes, you can. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this our 23rd episode at
Volume
Marvel
23.
Alliance. Yep. So you can follow the show on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast and me personally at Chris Balga. You can email the show at marvelapodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network. You can feel free to tweet or email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions, or answer on the show, fact or fictions. You can please if you've loved the show, besides our Patreon, if you can take a little bit of time and rate and review the network on Apple Podcasts, whichever podcatcher choice may be. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Travis. Thank you those of you who decided to join us early in the chat in the live stream. And as always, Stan Mann would say, Excelsior, true believer.